You think Freddy Krueger is just a movie character, a legend made to scare us? What if I told you the truth is far darker and more real than Hollywood wants you to believe? This story begins in a small Ohio town where a boy was born surrounded by darkness. He didn't have a name yet, but the seeds of terror were already being planted. Imagine a baby born on a cold, rainy night in a simple, forgotten house, son of a woman carrying a terrible secret. Amanda wasn't an ordinary mother. Her past hid a pain that would shape that boy's fate in a frightening way. What is it that no one ever told about her? Amanda had been locked in a psychiatric hospital, declared insane, but the truth was different. She suffered brutal violence behind those cold walls, a secret buried in darkness no one dared to reveal. The boy she carried in her womb would be the living consequence of that horror. In Springwood, the birth of that boy was met with fear and whispers. Rejected before opening his eyes, he grew surrounded by looks of disdain. How can anyone survive abandonment from their very first breath? And what happens to those the world decides to forget? Amanda, increasingly lost between madness and shame, drifted away from her son. Freddy grew up without love, his only comfort the silence of the night and the shadows he began to call friends. Could darkness be a refuge, or just a prelude to something much worse? The other children in town saw Freddy as an abomination. They called him cursed, keeping away in fear and cruelty. Bullying was relentless and invisible to adults. What happens when the system fails and leaves a child to fend for themselves? At school, teachers ignored signs of suffering. Neighbors closed windows when he passed. Freddy learned to hide, to control his anger and fear, but inside him, a fire began to burn, a fire that would soon consume everything around him. Then came the night that changed everything forever. A fire, a tragedy, an irreparable loss. Amanda was brutally murdered, and Freddy watched the flames consume not just his mother, but the last spark of his humanity. Could you survive something like that? After that fire, Freddy disappeared. No one knew where he went, but something inside him died and was reborn that night. The fragile boy gave way to a dark presence, a force that would transcend death and cross the limits of reality. Years later, Freddy returned, but not as a lost boy. Marked by suffering, with a rage burning hotter than fire, he became a being who ruled dreams, able to enter people's minds and turn their fears into real nightmares. Freddy discovered he could use fear against his victims, exploiting the hidden weaknesses of the human mind. He no longer needed a physical body to cause pain. In the dream world, he was invincible, a silent hunter, a dark presence no one could see, but everyone could feel. His famous bladed glove was born from the need to turn his hatred into a weapon. Each cut wasn't just physical, but a strike to the soul. Freddy knew fear was his greatest strength, and the more his victims feared, the more powerful he became. Have you ever felt a fear so strong it seemed real? Freddy's victims weren't chosen randomly. He sensed true fear, the kind that eats you from inside, the fear no one admits. He used it to build traps in dreams, where the smallest mistake meant death. Surviving Freddy was almost impossible, and the cost was your sanity. While the town tried to forget his story, Freddy Krueger became a shadow in every home, a whisper in the sleeping night. People felt his invisible gaze, the cold touch of death coming when no one could defend themselves. Would you be ready to face him? His curse was terrible. Whoever dreamed of Freddy wouldn't wake alive. It was a cycle of terror that repeated, involving parents, children, and a whole community trapped in a nightmare without end. The town tried to resist, but darkness grew, and Freddy fed on it. Freddy wasn't just a monster, but a manifestation of the pain and abandonment he suffered. He sought revenge against all who rejected him, and his fury spread like wildfire, burning dreams and destroying lives. Could you escape the gaze of such a being? As Freddy gained power, his presence began to distort not only dreams, but reality itself. Victims no longer knew if they were awake or asleep, living in a terror limbo that consumed their minds. Where does the dream end and the nightmare begin? The police tried to ignore the disappearances, but the truth was clear. Something dark haunted Springwood. Freddy Krueger ruled invisibly, his dark legend growing nightly, fueled by the genuine fear and hopelessness of those who couldn't run. Still, Freddy wasn't invincible. He had weaknesses, hidden and mysterious, tied to the past that shaped him. Facing him meant confronting not just the monster, but the pain and abandonment that gave birth to the nightmare. Would you have the courage? And while fear consumed the town, Freddy Krueger smiled in the shadows, knowing his reign would only end when the last terrified breath was taken. He was more than a monster. He was terror in its purest form, a vengeful spirit that forgave nothing and never forgot. Freddy began playing with his victims' minds, crafting nightmare scenes tailored to their deepest fears. It was as if he read their thoughts, anticipating every move, leaving them trapped. Have you ever felt someone knows your darkest secret? No one escaped Freddy's invisible touch. When he entered a dream, time slowed, each second an eternity of terror. In the end, death was certain, or worse, silent disappearance, leaving only emptiness behind. The community split between disbelief and panic. Some tried to rationalize, others sought protection in ancient rituals. But nothing stopped Freddy's relentless hunt in the one place everyone is most vulnerable: sleep. Even the brave became prisoners of their own fears when Freddy invaded their dreams. Victims dreaded sleep, but exhaustion pulled them back to face the monster. It was a battle lost before it began. Freddy wielded despair as a weapon. The more victims resisted, the crueler his attacks. Patient and methodical, he was a predator knowing true power lies in conquering the mind before the body. Could you resist this mental war? The bladed glove was not just a killing tool, but a symbol of Freddy's transformation. It marked his nightmares, a cruel warning that death was near, a reminder no one was safe, not even in the intimacy of sleep. Amid the terror, unlikely heroes emerged, youths choosing to fight Freddy armed only with courage and desperate will to survive. But was courage enough against a monster fed on fear? They sought weaknesses, ways to break or end Freddy's curse, but every attempt seemed to strengthen him, proving the true enemy was the fear he embodied. Freddy's reign seemed endless, an eternal curse destroying dreams and hearts. Springwood lived under a shadow of terror, an invisible prison where hope was the last to die, if it survived at all. Meanwhile, Freddy watched silently, smiling. As long as fear reigned, he would never die. A living nightmare, a dark mirror reflecting our deepest weaknesses, always ready to strike on the next dark night. Slowly, stories emerged about how Freddy could be stopped, but all required confronting fear head-on. It was a psychological game where the mind's strength was the only weapon against a monster that fed on terror. Do you believe courage can truly defeat a nightmare? Some youths escaped Freddy's attacks, but at a heavy price. Their sanity became fragile, forever marked by experiences no human should endure. The trauma inflicted by Freddy crossed dreams and invaded reality, leaving deep scars. Meanwhile, Freddy's legend grew, gaining darker edges. He became a symbol of collective fear, the embodiment of evil dwelling within us all. But is he merely a monster, or something far more complex? To some, Freddy was a tragic figure, corrupted by abandonment and pain. To others, he was a merciless killer, a demon of dreams. This duality made his story more fascinating and terrifying, a reminder that evil wears many faces. Freddy's impact on dreams was so intense that reality and nightmare blurred. The line between worlds faded, and those fighting him faced an enemy existing in both. This confusion bred constant paranoia where no one felt safe, not even in daylight. Freddy was terror transcending sleep, invading minds and eroding sanity. The fight against Freddy was spiritual as well as physical. Facing him meant confronting inner demons, accepting the pain and guilt fueling him. This was why so few survived encounters. Yet some resisted, knowing victory was unlikely. Ordinary people, youths, faced Freddy armed only with courage. This courage, however small, threatened to break the endless cycle of fear and death. Each battle with Freddy was a dance of life and death, with fear as the true adversary. Victims who stood firm found an inner strength no monster could erase. But how many were willing to pay that price? In the end, Freddy Krueger is more than a scary name. He's a dark symbol of what we try to hide, the fear, pain, and revenge born from rejection and abandonment. Are you ready to face your own nightmare? As Freddy ruled the dream world, Springwood tried to move on, but his shadow was impossible to ignore. Parents guarded their children in fear, doors were locked earlier, and silent nights became battlegrounds where no one slept peacefully. What started as an urban legend turned into a cruel reality for many. Freddy Krueger was no longer just a scary name, but a constant presence breaking the barrier between dream and nightmare. A spectre whispering threats in the mind's shadows. Survivors emerged, youths forever marked by encounters with Freddy. They carried invisible scars, a mix of fear and courage, memories of battles seemingly from another world, but leaving deep soul wounds. But what kept Freddy trapped between life and death? The secret lay in the curse's origin, buried deep in the past, few dared to remember. A past of pain, abandonment, and fire that turned a boy into an immortal monster. Over time, Freddy's story spread, gaining darker versions, but the truth never fully faded. He was a dark warning to those who ignored suffering and let hatred grow silently, a reminder of the price it demands. In dream's darkness, Freddy waited patiently for the next victim, knowing human fear never fully disappears. He was terror's embodiment, the consequence of abandonment, a monster living not just in minds, but in people's hearts. So the question remains, can we truly defeat what lives inside us? Can fear be overcome, or are we doomed to an eternal cycle of nightmares like Freddy Krueger? The answer may be more complex than we think, but amidst chaos, there's hope. Every person facing fear, resisting internal terror weakens Freddy's shadow. The true battle is within us, where courage and fear fight an endless war. Freddy Krueger is more than a horror icon. He mirrors what we create when we allow hate and rejection to consume us. Facing that truth is the first step to breaking free from fear and revenge cycles. Next time you close your eyes to sleep, ask yourself, what are you letting into your dream world? Freddy waits, not just to haunt but to teach that true terror is what we carry inside. Are you ready to face it? Freddy Krueger is a silent warning. The fear you hide can become your worst enemy. He lives between dreams and reality, where few dare to enter. The darkness inside each of us can turn into the most terrifying monster. Are you ready to face that shadow? Many believe Freddy is just a Hollywood creation, but the truth hides something deeper and more disturbing. A dark portrait of pain, abandonment, and revenge we all fear to admit. What would you do if your worst nightmare was real? Subscribe to the channel to uncover more dark secrets cinema never told. Leave a like to strengthen this story and help spread the truth. Comment which character you want me to reveal the true story of next. Your voice matters. Freddy Krueger isn't just a screen terror. He's a mirror of what can exist within us all. Face your fears, because running from them only lets them grow and take over your world, in dreams and in real life. Every time you close your eyes, remember the nightmare may be closer than you think. Freddy isn't just a monster. He's the manifestation of pain we keep, the rage we don't release. True terror lives inside our minds. The story you heard here is just the beginning. There's much more behind the masks of fear and silence. Stay with us to explore hidden truths Hollywood tries to hide, because real terror is darker than fiction. Want to keep exploring these mysteries? Turn on notifications and stay tuned for upcoming stories that will grip your attention from start to finish. Thanks for watching till the end. Subscribe, like, and comment which character you want me to reveal next. Darkness waits, but here, together, we bring truth to light. See you in the next video.